from the great state of Georgia. Congressman Barry Loudermilk is with us. Barry, how are you, sir?
Doing good, Glenn. How are you doing today?
I am really good. I have to tell you, I want to spend a couple of minutes as we get past some of this other stuff in the interview, talking about a book that you wrote this summer. I didn't hear anything about it. It somehow or another arrived on my desk, and I picked it up, and I was going on an airplane. And I have to tell you, Barry, I read that thing cover to cover, and I don't even know if anybody really knows about this book. I think it is one of the best history books and the most appropriate for its time right now. I actually want to talk to you about recording it myself. I think it would make a series of podcasts that are just fantastic. I just love it. That would
be awesome.
Yeah. It's called And They Prayed.
One of our goals.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of our goals is to do an audio book on this. I just haven't had the time to do the recording yet. So my family's been after me to do it, but I've been a little bit busy with investigations and legislative work.
Well, I'd love to make it in podcast. I think it's fantastic, Barry. It needs to be heard. We'll talk about that in a second. First, let me talk to you about what is going on. First of all, let's start with the pipe bombs. What is the latest on these pipe bombs?
Well, Glenn, it's amazing what having an administration that actually wants to get to the truth can do to change a narrative. What we have learned, and the premise that we went on in the previous 2 years that I was investigating, is that these pipe bombs were placed in the evening of January 5th. Right. And so everyone was going off of that premise. We start, and of course, I reached out to the FBI several times during that time period. Of course, the Biden administration were not forthcoming with information. Basically, they always use this excuse: this is an ongoing investigation, so we can't share that information. I'm like, goodness gracious, how long is this investigation going to go? So what we've learned through the Trump administration is that story doesn't fit with the facts that we're finding. It appears to us, and let me give you credit, because you brought this up on a show I was doing with you over a year ago, that the pipe bombs had a 60-second egg timer on them. So how could you place, a 60-minute egg timer, right?
Yeah.
You brought that up. I started researching that. I talked to some bomb experts, and they said, well, quite often that is an override. In other words, you have an electronic trigger that actually sets off the bomb, but you put the egg timer on to basically set it, and it triggers the other trigger. You know, it enables it. It just basically gives you time to get away. So we were going on that premise. Well, one thing we get is the lab report from the FBI on the pipe bombs. Just got that recently. There was no electronic timer. The only timer was that 60-minute egg timer. So it's impossible that these pipe bombs were placed and armed on the night of January 5th. They had to be placed at some point not long before they were found on January 6th, because a lady that lives close by to the one that was placed by the Republican National Committee, and her testimonies, which have been consistent, she said there were still 20 minutes left on the egg timer when she found it.
Right.
So that's one huge inconsistency. The other is mysterious data, or data that has been it's disappeared. And it was when the FBI was doing geofence searches. They went to all the major cell carriers and asked for all the precise data of people who were in that area on January 5th and 6th. Mm-hmm. All the carriers provided information except for one, AT&T. AT&T apparently corrupted the data. Now, we kept hearing that the data was corrupted, and this is in my previous investigation. AT&T claimed they didn't corrupt the data. The FBI did. The FBI, we found out later, said no, the data was corrupted when we got it. Now that we get the real information, it becomes even more mysterious. There is a entity known as FirstNet. FirstNet was created by Congress after 9/11 to preempt cell service for law enforcement. So they only serve law enforcement first responders. So in a time of emergency, their calls take priority. So FirstNet actually sits on an AT&T backbone. For some reason, and this is where my suspicion started growing, is when the FBI contacted AT&T, gave them a preservation letter, said, save all of this data specifically around the areas where the pipe bombs were, because they have to go through the legal mumbo jumbo to actually get the subpoena. So they don't want stuff to disappear. They send a letter telling AT&T to preserve the data. AT&T responds and says, you have to go to FirstNet to get this data. Which raises my suspicion. Why are they telling them to go to the carrier just for law enforcement? Well, according to FirstNet, that data was going to be deleted within just a few hours. So they were in this massive hurry to download all the data before it was deleted, and somehow it just got corrupted. I'm not buying the story.
Okay, so wait a minute. Why would FirstNet have access to the data? Why wouldn't it still be with AT&T?
My question, I've questioned that, and this is what we're seeking right now. Was it law enforcement information that the FBI was seeking, or first responder? First of all, there was a reason AT&T sent them over to FirstNet.
Correct.
We don't know. And we've been told that FirstNet had just signed a contract with the FBI, and so they were handling all the data retrieval. So that's a possibility. I mean, these are questions we don't have that we are seeking right now. But the bottom line is the narrative that we were sold on is not even close to what the evidence is bringing up.
So what does that imply? Who is giving us this false testimony and evidence?
Well, that's what we need to find out. Is it AT&T? Is it FirstNet? Is it, and probably likely to an extent, the FBI? So we're going to be requesting more information from the FBI as far as details of their investigation. What FBI had claimed, the Biden FBI, was, well, obviously the person who placed the pipe bomb, their data was in that AT&T set that got corrupted. I'm still having an issue with the corruption. I spent 20 years in the IT business. When data is never really deleted, it's always saved somewhere. It may be archived. I can't understand how such a carrier like AT&T would just arbitrarily delete data literally within a few days of a major event. In our previous investigation, we contacted all these carriers, and one carrier says, look, when it's a significant event, we keep that data forever. They said, we even still have data from the Oklahoma City bombing.
Wow.
So if that's the case, I'm not really buying the story that
was any other data. I mean, they seem to have found everybody, every grandmother. Was any other data corrupted other than this particular area?
That's what we need to know, but my understanding is no, just the area around the pipe bomb. And it was very precise data that would actually give you the distance from the cell tower. So this is what we're, kind of dealing with is you got to go off of some kind of premise. Well, why? We've learned who claimed to have corrupted the data. And what they're saying is they were in such a hurry to download it before it automatically deleted that it overloaded the server, and the server corrupted all the data. I'm thinking somebody needs some better servers if that's the case.
Yeah, that's weird for AT&T. Let me give you one more question on this, and then I want to move on to the shutdown. What about the FBI saying that the bombs were viable, and lab never using that word viable? What does that mean? And also, is there a chance that this was some sort of a training exercise, or these were training exercise bombs?
Well, that is something I've recently brought up, is when you look at the lab report from the FBI, and we're looking a little deeper in that lab report too.
Yeah.
It never does use the word, as you said, the word viable. It does say that there were explosive components in it, but it never says that it was enough to cause a massive explosion. And so from my time in the military, we did a lot of different training exercises. And if you're going to do a real training exercise, you made things as realistic as possible. I mean, I remember when I was in the Air Force, we had a simulated attack on our base. We literally had jets flying overhead shooting blanks, right? You try to make it as realistic as possible. Right. Especially for an exercise like this, you want a device that looks like a bomb and it smells like a bomb for a bomb-sniffing dog.
Yes.
But here's the issue. We have video of the Secret Service with a bomb-sniffing dog walking literally within feet of where the bomb supposedly was placed the night before and never hits on anything. So if it was, which makes me think, if it is a training exercise, the bomb wasn't there when the dog was walking by, or he should have hit on it. So there's more questions than answers, but at least we have a direction to go. So I think there is a possibility that these were, whether it was a training exercise or somebody just used training type devices to put out there. But if you go back and you look at the videos we released a year ago, law enforcement were letting people just walk by these devices. There's one video of a guy in a suit walking within feet of the robot that's about to destroy the device. That makes no sense, unless somebody knew they weren't viable.
Okay. Barry, let me take a 1 minute break. I'm going to come back. I want to ask you, explain to people who don't understand what's going on. Why is the government shut down? And we'll talk about that in 60 seconds. First, let me tell you about our sponsor this half hour. Our sponsor is LifeLock. You know, identity theft is personal invasion. It's somebody using your name, your social security, your good credit to open accounts. They take out loans. They ruin things that you've worked for. Most of the time, you don't even know it until the damage is done, and now you're stuck with it. This is why I recommend LifeLock. LifeLock watches for the signs 24/7. They monitor credit activity, online data leaks, suspicious use of your personal information. So you're not the last to find out when something, is hitting the fan. But monitoring alone is not enough. You need a team that can step in and restores what has been taken, helping you clean up the credit reports, dispute fraudulent claims, rebuild what matters, and the kind of service that, buys back your time, the hours that you would have spent on hold, the nights you'd lay awake worrying, the payments you'd have to track down. LifeLock brings the technology to find the problems and the people to fix them. So protect what's yours with LifeLock. Join now, save up to 40% off your first year with the promo code BECK. Call 1-800-LifeLock, 1-800-LifeLock, or head to LifeLock.com. Use the promo code BECK for 40% off. It's LifeLock.com, 1-800-LifeLock. All right, 10 seconds and back to Barry. So, Barry, can you explain the shutdown? I mean, as I understand it, the government is shut down because the Democrats want to make sure that they continue funding Obamacare for illegals, which is completely outrageous. But we're not even talking about a long-term solution here. We're not talking about actually passing a real budget. We're just talking about another extension of this budget. Tell me what's going on and how people should look at this.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The underlying problem is Congress hasn't followed the law since I have been in Congress. Right. I think the last time we actually appropriated, according to law, I think Newt Gingrich was Speaker. So we have to overhaul the system to where it works more efficiently. But by September 30th, Congress is supposed to have fully funded the government. Now, traditionally, the House does a better job with it. It usually gets stalled in the Senate, and what happens is you keep doing these you punt, you kick the ball down the field a little bit to give more time, and then at the end of the year, leadership gets together and they pass one big, huge bill that's hard to determine what's in it, an omnibus. So we're trying to change that. But came September 30th, we had not passed appropriations, so the idea was let's just extend the current funding that have been passed on a huge bipartisan basis, that all the Democrats voted for the same bill back in March. Let's extend it out into November to give us a little bit more time to try to finish the process appropriately and have more time for negotiating some of these issues. That's all it is giving us more time till the middle of November. But the Democrats saw this as an opportunity to undo some of Trump's policy they never expected Republicans, because traditionally it's hard for us to unify. Yeah. And so we held together. We got this big, beautiful bill through. We got his rescissions package through. We got things that I've been wanting to do since I've been in Congress. And they saw this as an opportunity to undo some of that, including giving government subsidies, taxpayers' money, taking the money out of hardworking Americans' pockets and give it to people who aren't even supposed to be in this country. That is the premise. That is the main portion of what they want to do, as well as $1.3 billion or $1 trillion of new spending. I mean, it's egregious what they're wanting. And if they want that, that's what this time period's supposed to be for negotiating it. But they know they can't get there. They never expected Republicans to be unified. And President Trump, as he's doing exactly what I have advocated in the past, is when you go into these shutdowns, what is furloughed is what's considered non-essential employees. My question has always been, why do we have people working for the federal government that aren't essential to the core constitutional purpose of the federal government?
Amen.
So he's saying this is the time to just go ahead and lay these people off. And so that's kind of where we are. I mean, you're not, and in the past, like when we went into shutdown under Obama, the executive branch, the president gets to determine what programs are scuttled, which ones are shut down. And Obama decided, let's make the cuts that's most painful to the American people. So he shut down the parks. TSA was hard to fly. Trump's doing the opposite. He's going to use this and say, well, this is the opportunity to trim down government. We're going to make sure the American people get everything that they need. Parks are going to stay open.
Love it.
This is our opportunity to right-size government.
Okay. Barry, thank you so much. Hang on with me because I want to talk to you about And Then They Prayed. It is an amazing history book that every single person in the country should read. Back in just a second.
This is Glenn Beck.
All right. Leaf Filter is our sponsor. The leaves are coming. At first, it'll be nice, beautiful red, gold colors, nice breeze. And then suddenly your gutters are a wet, rotting sponge. And your roof is swampy. And you just know there's going to be damage to your house somewhere. You could climb a ladder and battle the leaf tsunami with a handful of gloves and shameful determination. Or you could just call Leaf Filter. Spoiler, that's the smart move. They install a stainless steel mesh that lets water flow and keeps the rest of the leaves and the twigs and the bird's nest and all the unwanted things. No clogs, no ladder, no drama, no siding replacement, just the sound of rain where it belongs. Soft, clean, unthreatening, while everything above your head flows the way it's supposed to. Leaf Filter takes care of it all, so you never have to worry about cleaning your gutters out again. Don't spend the season worrying about gutters. Schedule your free inspection and get up to 30% off your entire purchase at leaffilter.com/GlennBeck. That's a free estimate, free inspection, and 30% off at leaffilter.com/GlennBeck. See representative for warranty details. All right, back with more in just a second.
Subscribe to the free email newsletter at glennbeck.com. It's every story we talk about every day. More with Barry Loudermilk next.
Things are happening so rapidly all around the world. We told you about what's happening in South Korea. We have more on that with Charlie Kirk's pastor, who's going to be joining us in an hour. What's happening in Canada? They're taking away the guns. You have Alberta trying to break free from Ottawa and the federal government. Is that even a possibility? I have a Canadian attorney who is really kind of leading this effort law-wise, Keith Wilson. He is going to be joining me in just a minute. We are with Barry Loudermilk now. Barry is a good friend of the program and a great American patriot who is working hard in Washington to try to get answers on January 6th and some of this weaponization stuff. We're talking to him about that. But I picked up, Barry, I wish somebody would have sent this book to me personally. I don't even know how I got it. It was just sitting on my desk, I think up at my ranch, and I pick it up. I'm getting on an airplane. I pick it up, and I'm like, oh, Barry's got a new book out. And it was like, I don't know, 2 months after the book came out. And take it on the plane. I start reading it. And, sometimes American history books just bore the snot out of me. This was so compelling and so good and it's a message that, is good at any time, but especially after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, something has happened in America. And this is how our patriots throughout time have prayed, and the difference that prayer has made over and over and over again. And I just think it's a fabulous book.
Well, thank you, Glenn. And by the way, I actually sent that to you. I know you're busy. I just reached out to your office and I said, how can I get this book to them? And they gave me the address to your place out there. And
okay.
So,
that's how it happened. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Somebody opened it then. I didn't get a note or anything. I just saw the book and I'm like, so I'm sorry that I didn't get back to you, but it's fabulous, Barry. It's really good.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, that was one of our pre-release copies. I think you got the second or third one. President Trump got the first one. So,
wow.
And I've been told he's been reading it.
So tell the audience the arc of the book, the reason why you wrote it, and tell some of the stories in it.
Well, the reason is we're going into the 250th anniversary of our country, and as our good friend David Barton speaks of all the time, this is the longest any government like this has ever existed, far beyond what anyone anticipated it would. Oh, yeah. And people are wondering, with all this going on, how can we go any longer? Can we go another 10, 20, or 250 years? And my answer to this was yes, if we go back and look at what sustained us for the first 250 and repeat that. And our founders spoke openly and regularly about God's acts of divine providence, especially during the Revolutionary War. And even George Washington's first act as president was to declare a national day of thanksgiving and prayer, acknowledging all of those acts of providence. Most people today can't tell you 1, 2, or 3 of those acts, even though there's several books about acts of providence during the time of the Revolutionary War.
Correct.
But God's providence didn't end there. It continued throughout our history, and I could not find any books on this. And these are stories my dad, a World War II veteran, had told me that he had learned. And so I spent actually 10 years of research to make sure that everything in this book is well documented and factual. And it spans from 1746 up into the 20th century, the Apollo 8 space mission, of moments in history that are clearly, undeniably, the outcome was a result of prayer, as well as the courage of the people who were involved. And I mean, there's several stories in there that just are. My daughter
let's start with
all the time. What's your favorite?
Let's start backwards. Let's start with Apollo 8. And then tell me something that happened in World War II.
So with the Apollo 8 mission was the first time that we were leaving the gravitational pull of Earth and orbiting the moon. It was a huge advancement for the United States. And one of the things that the crew realized is they were going to, first of all, they were going to do a broadcast as they were orbiting the moon, and it was going to be on Christmas Day. And they also were advised, when you have that broadcast, whatever you say is going to be heard around the world, because it was going to be the largest watched television story ever. And so they really struggled with what they were going to say. And so 2 things happened. One was the commander was supposed to pray at his church on that weekend, but because they accelerated the time frame of their mission, he wasn't able to be there to read scripture and to pray. So he had his prayer recorded as they were orbiting the moon and played at his church, and it's a tremendous prayer. But the rest of the crew surprised the entire world, because when it came time for them to give this broadcast, they read the Genesis story, the first 6 verses out of the book of Genesis. And it's an incredible story. And then NASA faced lawsuits as a result of what they're doing. But these are the types of people that knew this was the opportunity to get America to reflect back on what has sustained us as a country. And it's the providence of God. You asked about, I'm sorry.
Give me your favorite story from World War II that's in the book.
So probably it's the story of that great evangelist of the gospel, General George Patton. People don't think of George Patton as that type of person. Mm-hmm. But the story is Patton is after D-Day. They push through. They're stuck in France because of bad weather. Over in Holland, you've got tremendous snows, and that's where my dad was during World War II. Wow. And so with his frustration, he calls his chaplain, Patton does, and he says, do we have an official Army prayer for good weather for battle? And he says, well, let me look it up. He finds out there isn't. So he comes back and says, sir, we don't have one. He said, well, then I want you to write one. And so the chaplain asks, what are you going to do with this? And Patton goes through this dissertation about the power of prayer. And it's just amazing. If you have pastors preach that monologue he gives his chaplain today as he's teaching his chaplain about the power of the prayer, I mean, you'd be amazed with the impact we would have from the churches. But he talks about how prayer is so powerful. It's like plugging into a live electric circuit to get things done. But one of the things he tells his chaplain, and this is where the title of the book comes from, he said, there are three things that we do to achieve victory: planning, working, and prayer. He says planning is when we sit down and we lay out an entire battle plan. The working is the training where we prepare the soldiers for battle. But what really decides the difference between victory and defeat is that void between those. And that void, if it's filled with prayer, that's what makes the difference for victory. And so when you look at what they did, and this was preceding the Battle of the Bulge, our founders, they would plan, they would prepare for battle, and then they prayed. And that's what made all the difference. And in this case, Patton printed 250,000 little cards that had this prayer on it, and they distributed those to every soldier in the Third Army. And those prayer cards arrived right after Patton had been mobilized to relieve Bastogne, that had been surrounded by Nazis during the Battle of the Bulge. And amazingly, within 24 hours after those prayer cards landed, the weather unexpectedly changed. The snows quit. They were expected to go for 2 more weeks. The Army Air Corps was in the air and drove the Nazis back across the line. And George Patton fully attributed that miracle to the prayer card.
So I have a story on this particular event. I have an article. I can't remember if it's Life magazine. It's one of those older magazines that did a spread on this back in the 1940s after the war. And it was crediting as a source one of the main guys that was with Patton. And he said that, they had prepared, they had done, and then the storms and the rains and the snows and everything just bogged everything down. They couldn't move. They just couldn't move. And Patton he went in, this is the story that I have, and I don't know if it's true or not. Patton went in to a church and he was praying, and apparently the guy who was the source of this one story said he was standing outside and he was speaking to the Lord, and he was angry, and he was like, we've done everything and we have prayed, and we need your help. We just need a day or two of this to stop. Please help us. And he said he was very animated and a little bit cross. And then he left and asked to develop the prayer, et cetera, et cetera. And then after the rain stopped, they went in, because the rains and the snows stopped, they could move the tanks and all the equipment, and they won. And he said in this article from Life magazine years ago that Patton actually went back to that same church and begged for forgiveness for a moment of passion and thanked God. Do you know if that's part is true?
I have read that. I believe it is because we found information about that. And it was his initial experience as praying in that chapel, that church.
Right.
He he somewhat references it in his speech because that's when he realizes that the advancement that they had made so far from landing at D-Day all the way into France, he said, is because our families and the people back home are praying for us.
Correct.
And he says, but that is no longer enough. We have to have every soldier in the Third Army praying now. And that was as a result of his prayer in the chapel, as he realized we need more prayer.
Barry, I can't believe the providential timing of your book. I mean, I know you released it this summer, but I think the time for it to really show its face is right now. I think because of the unfortunate death of Charlie Kirk, the assassination of our good friend, I believe we are in the beginning of what could be, if we maintain it, a real revival. Because I know nothing will save us except God. And if we turn back to him, we recognize him, we praise him, we humble ourselves, and we pray for his help, the Lord will save us again. Whether we deserve it or not, he will extend his grace. And I just think your book is so providentially timed.
Well, I appreciate it. We felt very led to release this book on July the 4th this year. And our goal is to get this into as many hands as we can. We have churches that have told us they're using it as Sunday school curriculum.
Good.
I spoke to a group of pastors yesterday, and the pastor that introduced me brought the book up, and he said, every one of you need this. This is great sermon material right here. Some of the most prominent pastors across the nation have contacted me and said, hey, may I use this story in my sermon? I'm like, absolutely. This is what it's there for. We want people to know these stories and share these stories, especially with this next generation coming up, because I'm with you. I believe the assassination of Charlie Kirk is telling us that we are in the midst of this new revival. And the reason I say that is something my dad would tell me. Look, since I've been in Congress, I have been through 2 assassination attempts. I've been run over. I mean, I've been through more than most people have to go through in their life. And one thing my dad used to tell me is, he said, look, son, if you're going through something that's bad, a tribulation, it could be a good thing. Because he said, look, before we landed on the beaches of Normandy, when we were training in England, the Nazis weren't shooting at us. When we got on the ships, they weren't shooting at us. When we got on the Higgins boats and just left the ship, they weren't shooting at us. It was when we started taking their ground is when they started shooting, and the closer we got, the more intense the fire was. He said that's how you could tell where your target was how intense the fire was. So he said, look, if you're not being attacked, you need to consider maybe you're not a threat to the enemy or you're over the wrong target. But if you are, it could be a sign that you're doing the right thing and you're taking ground. And I think that's where we are right now. But we have to be equipped to know it is this very thing, prayer, that has sustained us for 250 years against all odds.
Barry, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We'll talk again. And I really want to reach out to you in the next couple of days and talk to you about doing the voice work for this, because I believe in it so much. Thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate
Representative
it.
Barry Loudermilk. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, if people want it, it's andthentheyprayed.com. And you can get all the information on it there.
Yep. The name of the book is And Then They Prayed. You can get it at andthentheyprayed.com by Barry Loudermilk. It is a must read. Everyone should have it. It's not that hard to read. It's very short. Each chapter is a different story, and it is fabulous. Really good. Barry Loudermilk, And Then They Prayed. All right. Our sponsor this half hour is Preborn. How many times, how many lives have you saved today? How many times have you even saved a life? Would you like to save one? How about 2, maybe 10? Believe it or not, you can, and it's easier than you think. Preborn offers free ultrasounds so moms can see what they're carrying, boy or girl. And so she'll hopefully choose life by showing that see the baby inside of you? That's a real baby, and the heartbeat, and is it a boy or a girl? When she sees that image, hears that heartbeat, she usually chooses life. Preborn also gives everyday support, diapers, counsel, community that makes the choice easier for her. I mean, they feel very, very alone. Nobody in their life is supporting a child, and they want to, but then they have no support. This is what Preborn does. And if it sounds amazing to save a life, it is. All you have to do is make the decision, and Preborn is standing ready to help. They just need people willing to step forward with them, people like you and me. This is why the truth matters now more than ever, because when a mom hears that heartbeat, lives are saved. And $28 provides that truth through a free ultrasound. This is your chance to make a difference that will echo into eternity. Will you answer the call? Preborn.com/Beck. That's preborn.com/Beck, or dial pound 250 on your phone and say the keyword baby. Pound 250, keyword baby. Do it now, because life matters. Sponsored by Preborn.
Here's a friendly tip. Always drink upstream of the herd. If you know, you know. Glenn Beck.